Good afternoon, Luang Paul ครับ
Good afternoon, Ajahn.
So today is the 22nd of July, Wednesday. Thank you very much for taking a few more questions from disciples in various places who've been sending them. So today the first question is from someone who's asking about the situation of elderly people who get dementia, and this idea that one needs to think good thoughts at the time of death to be able to have a peaceful death or a good rebirth or whatever, good state of mind. And so do people who have dementia can't really control their thoughts anymore, or whatever happens to them? So they were asking about that situation. Could you say a few words about that, please?
Well, I don't really know what happens when anyone dies because I haven't died yet. And but I know that what doesn't die is consciousness. So the body dies, the personality, the mental states, the emotions, they cease. The sense organs of the persons cease operating, so they can't see, smell, taste, touch, think. But what doesn't die is consciousness. This is very important. So when you realize the beauty of pure consciousness, you realize it's benevolent, it's metta, it's karuna. It's not a judgmental state that punishes or rewards anybody. So, when there's so many stories about what happens after death and what your last thought should be or whatever, but I would give credit to anyone who has dementia, to not be afraid, because death is nothing to be feared. It's the natural state of what was born. What is born dies, what begins ends. So we can, in dementia, the body's still functioning, the thinking process isn't working properly. So, the sense of being reasonable, rational, in the way that we consider normal is not operative. That's due to the disruption of the conditioning factors of the brain. So that's also impermanent. The brain is impermanent. The thoughts, feelings, emotions are impermanent, and they're not self. They're anatta. They have a beginning and it just like the Buddha kept repeating over and over again, the nature of sankhara is impermanent and not self. So I would advise people who are dealing with others who have dementia, who have Alzheimer's disease, or these kind of mental, emotional disturbances. Best thing you can do is encourage them not to fear. There's nothing to be afraid of. Dhamma is totally, it's metta, karuna, mudita, upekkha. It's the Brahma Viharas. It's peaceful. It's beautiful. And so that's nothing to be afraid of. Where, fear arises from thinking. Even a normal person, we can become terribly afraid when we start thinking about the future, what's going to happen with climate change, with the COVID-19 virus epidemic, what's going to happen to our economies, to our children, to our parents. And the more you think, the more anxious and frightened you become, because the future doesn't exist. It's always the here and now. So you can imagine anything here and now about tomorrow, about success, failure, good fortune, bad fortune. And that's always imagination in the present moment that you're creating with thoughts. And the thinking process is for discrimination. It's about the nature of sankharas. Thinking itself is a sankhara. So you can't think your way to nibbana, because nibbana, is the word itself implies a visankhara or not sankhara, not a condition. It doesn't have a beginning or ending. And it's to be realized, to be recognized. Because it's here and now, it's not something remote, distant, far away that you have to reach for. It's just learning to let go and be the knower of the present moment is like this.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, someone was asking, they've been meditating for some time, or a few years now, and so they know all the instructions, what they're supposed to do, and yet quite often when they sit down to meditate, this tension develops in the head. Sometimes it reaches a state of a headache, sometimes not. They kind of back off a bit. But they were asking what to do with that. What's happening there?
Well, what's happening is it's too much effort. It's like, oftentimes when you read instructions about meditation, it sounds like you have to put forth an enormous amount of effort, kind of volition or activities that you have to force the concentration and sustain it and so forth. And just observe the way these instructions affect you. When you have a kind of instructions, information about how to practice, it can come across as, as a command, as a demand, as a you must be like this. It should be, these kind of words convey to the average person conditioned by Western society that they've got to put forth enormous amount of effort to realize nibbana. And so, many of us started out that way because that's the way we're conditioned. I myself found that true. When I put forth this enormous effort to concentrate, I'd get a headache. And this is why, there's 4 different kinds of efforts, and they're not always, the kind of effort that you need to lift a log onto a lorry, like when you're going to lift something heavy. It takes an awful lot of effort to bring up the log, the heavy log, and put it into the lorry. But you can't sustain that kind of effort. That's the kind of effort only for that particular kind of situation. It doesn't work for meditation to use that kind of effort for meditation. Meditation is much more refined. So, there's sustaining, there's bhavana, there's mindfulness, and this is intuitive. The kind of effort is rather than a prescription that someone gives you. It's an intuitive sense of balance and what is appropriate, how to sustain or how to let go. Letting go can sound like, annihilation, getting rid of. It takes a lot of effort to try to destroy, get rid of, annihilate conditions in the mind. And that kind of effort will bring a headache. But actually letting go is more relaxing. It's rather than throwing away, destroying anything, it's just relaxing, letting go of what you're grasping tightly. And this is where your intuitive awareness, the sati sampajanya, is necessary for you to know how to balance. Like when a child is learning to walk, at first, a young child can't even walk, can't stand on its two legs. It needs to hold on to things, so it starts crawling. It develops strength in its limbs through crawling around the floor, and then it starts holding onto the furniture and onto the mother's hand, and eventually, it starts trying to walk by itself independently of the adults, and it falls down, but it gets up again and starts walking till it finds a balance. And that child is doing it intuitively. He's not, if you just say, you've got two legs, walk, that's rational, that any creature with two legs can walk, but that's not the way it is, that's just a statement from the thinking mind. But if you notice when young children are learning to walk, they can't walk very well in the beginning. They take a step, fall over, but then they don't think about, I failed at walking, I can't walk. They just get up again and start over. You can't stop them, no matter how many times they fall down. And you have to let them fall down, and pick themselves up. And that's part of the training, with meditation. You're not always going to succeed, but, you start again. You don't think, well, I can't meditate because my mind wanders, or I have these obsessive thoughts, or, when you start thinking about yourself as having you can't meditate, then you actually believe that, so you can't meditate. But if you don't believe that, like the young child learning to walk doesn't think I can't walk because the first few steps aren't very good, just pick yourself up and start over again.
So not to be afraid of the occasional headache and all the...
Right, just trust your own intuition to know. And getting a headache is, you're creating incredible tension through too much effort.
So with a child who's learning how to walk, there's an incentive there.
Yeah.
The incentive is to go to the parent or go and discover the world or something. And what's the motivation in meditation when some people just sort of fail and they feel depressed? How do they motivate themselves again?
It's like to realize nirvana. That's why we become monks, isn't it? You don't become a monk to get worldly success or wealth or fame. You don't care about that. Why do we give up maybe ambition, worldly ambitions, to become a monk in Thailand? Is to realize the truth, to wake up and realize, the Dhamma, the reality of our own existence, rather than just trying to get something that looks attractive, as some kind of goal that, a bait to attract you to go forward. When we all ordain, we take up samadhis to realize nirvana. And I even explain this to monks who ordain for the pansa. They're doing it to fulfill the custom of Thai custom to ordain temporarily. But you still have to say to realize nirvana, whether you mean it or not. But, I really took that seriously when I ordained. I didn't ordain because it's not my cultural conditioning to do that. It's going against my cultural conditioning. Why would someone like myself, an American, decide to come to Thailand and ordain, not for worldly gain, but awakenness, for enlightenment, for understanding.
So if I may, Luang Por, the people who are going to be watching this video are not all monks. And I guess I know that some lay people sometimes find it a little bit difficult to connect with that goal of Nibbana. It seems very remote and inaccessible. And they too yet would like to meditate and find ways of motivating themselves in the meditative learning process.
Well, nowadays meditation is de rigueur, isn't it, worldwide, to really, to calm the mind. So that's a good goal too, whether you don't have to be a monk to meditate. Even to realize Nirvana, you don't have to be a monk or a samana. That would be, because Nibbana is here and now. It's not something that only, ascetics can realize. Dhamma is here and now. It's not something that only monks can take refuge in or realize. Dhamma is the way things are. It's here and now. It's not something high up that you have to live a especially disciplined life to realize. But it's learning to open to life itself, to open with awareness, with intuitive awareness, this sense of not just an analysis or thinking, because that's not aware. That's just defining. That gives names and values and qualities to conditioned phenomena. But intuition, as I use this word, intuition, intuitive awareness, is more on the heart level. It's opening to life, to receive the way it is as in the present moment. And so that's what direct meditation is about, is this sense of opening and trusting in awareness, in mindfulness, in conscious awareness, in intuitive awareness, to be able to recognize that which recognizes the state of mind. If sometimes people are intimidated by monks because we kind of have a form that lay people don't have. The form itself is designed to encourage mindfulness, but just the form is not enough. It's just an empty form like anything else, and so it's not to be intimidated by Buddhist monks or nuns, but to realize that it's the human birth, this human form, the form itself gives us this reflective ability to observe, to be the witness to the flow of life as we individually experience it. So we can't really, it's not about attaching to a form, because we can be attached to monastic forms and not see through them. That is not uncommon, just to be attached to the form of monastic life and not realize the attachment, the identity that we're having in regard to the form that the Buddha established. But the form is merely an expedient means to realize Dhamma here and now. So, and it's also, I've often contemplated, why did the Buddha say to Ananda before he passed away was, I give you the Dhamma and the Vinaya. The form of Vinaya actually, has maintained itself through time, since the time of the Buddha to the present situation here and now. It's a form that has survived, through 2,500 years of, of developing and degenerating and reviving and so forth. So you look at the history of Buddhism, and it has a history of, of being abundant and worldwide religion, to being almost disappearing from the planet, to being revived again, because the form it allows that to happen. It allows to carry the Dhamma teaching from the past into the present moment. But it's merely an expedient means. It's not an end in itself.
So as one learns to relax in meditation and sort of get in touch with this kind of more intuitive sense, awareness, and then some people kind of start experiencing the mind, the thinking kind of slows down and sometimes goes quiet at times. They're still noticing, they're still seeing, hearing, smelling, whatever. The senses are still operating, but there's all of a sudden this sense of quiet in the mind. And what is that, and how to use it in the practice?
Well, when you can't make yourself quiet, using effort, strong effort to quiet the mind. You can suppress feelings and thoughts and that through willpower, but you can't, it's unsustainable. It rebounds back. And that's where you get the headaches. And the tension, the body becomes full of tension. Now your body is a sankhara, so by making it tense, it's creating suffering, unpleasant sensations, unpleasant feelings in the body through effort. But when you relax more, when you let go, and letting go in this sense, bhana, the effort of, bhana, letting go is not, as I said before, not annihilating or destroying anything, but relaxing. So this is very important. When you relax and stop trying so hard, then you start, the thinking process can slow down to where you're not intentionally thinking anymore, but you're still conscious. The senses still operate. You can still see, hear, smell, taste, touch. Thoughts come and go, but you're not intentionally thinking, creating thoughts and going from one thought to another. And that's very important to recognize, that the consciousness, vacant consciousness, without getting caught up in thinking and reacting to emotions, is peaceful. This is where, I had my first real insight into what peace really is natural consciousness itself is peaceful. It's not, it's not exciting, it's not depressing, it's not, so the emotions are all about excitement and depression. But, so on an emotional level, it's equanimous, it's equanimity, it's upekkha, so it's to respect that. And the very thought, what do I do next, is just the habit tendency of your thinking mind to think there's something more to do, when actually there's nothing more to do. And that silence, that peace of conscious awareness, but then as a personality, as a conditioned phenomenon, we always assume it can't be this simple. You have to do something. There's something more I've got to do to get rid of something, or get hold of something, or to hold on to this upekkha, this equanimity. So the thinking mind, when you're just depending upon upekkha or quietness or equanimity as experience, you can create a desire for it. When it disappears, then you want it again. So we have to be aware of these desires, like the wanting something you don't have. Once you've had that experience, that insight into Luang, into the empty consciousness, vacant conscious awareness, the thinking mind starts creating desires, because you don't stay there. You start, what do I do next after this? What comes after this? Or where am I a stream enterer or whatever? You start thinking about yourself or about attainment, or you start questioning or doubting. This is all the thinking process. So encouragement to let go of thinking. You can't think your way to Nibbana. You can't desire Nibbana. The desire is the very obstruction to Nibbana, the thing that veils it, that hides it from us. All the time is the three kinds of desire. Kama, Dhamma, desire for sensual pleasures. Bhava, Dhamma, desire for becoming. Vibhu, Dhamma, desire for annihilation. So desire is to be let go of. It's the second noble truth. The insight is to let go of desire. To let go, you have to know what desire is. You can't just intellectually try to let go of desire, because you don't understand desire. You haven't had the intuitive acceptance of desires like this. You just take the affirmative position to get rid of desires to realize Nibbana. It doesn't work that way. You have to recognize sensual desires like this, desire for becoming, desire for Nibbana, desire for enlightenment is like this, desire to get rid of the defilements, the kilesas, the faults, the misery, the suffering is like this. And this is intuition, this is not rational. It's not about rationally deciding to get rid of desire, but understanding desire allows you to let go of it, because you see you're conditioned to cling to it, to identify with desire. The whole sakkaditi, the whole ego structure of every one of us is this based on this desire, this clinging to desire. And so as long as that is never recognized or understood, that's how we're, even with meditation, with Buddhist meditation, we're going to use these desires for attainment, for achievement, and desire to get rid of the defilements, get rid of kilesas, get rid of anger, get rid of jealousy, fear, and greed. As long as we operate from these three kinds of desires, then we never, we can't let go. We're attached, and that creates tension and unpleasantness in the body and in the mind. So in the second noble truth, the first truth is the statement, there is suffering. And the second noble truth is about the origin, the causes of suffering, is this attachment, clinging, identifying with the three kinds of desires. And it's and the way to understand suffering is to accept it, to really observe it, be the puto, puru, the witness to suffering, to anxieties like this. Like consciousness, intuitive awareness isn't desire. It doesn't desire anything. The personality has all kinds of desires, good desires, bad desires, whatever whatever quality they have, from the best to the worst, there's still desire, there's still sankharas, there's still that which hinders us from realizing the amatta Dhamma, or the ultimate reality. So just to encourage you to see that Dhamma is here and now. So it's not just for not some kind of abstract metaphysical concept, Buddhist philosophy. It's it's apparent. It's here and now. We know we're conscious. Consciousness is not a mystery, but you can't define it. You can't objectify it in any way, because you are consciousness itself, and that, so you can't find yourself as an object, but you begin to understand the way that we blind ourselves by identifying with suffering, with desires, with the sense experiences, with the ambitions, the aspirations that we create of what we would like, what we want to get, with our desire to get rid of the evil forces, the negative states of mind, the depression, and that which is aware of these desires is not desire. It's intuitive awareness, consciousness, mindfulness, whatever words you choose. These words mean the same thing. It's seeing the way it is that all conditions are impermanent. And that the Dhamma, consciousness itself, is anatta. It's not personal. It's not like my consciousness and your consciousness, and then male consciousness or female consciousness. Consciousness has no gender, doesn't belong to a person, but it's here and now, and it's what we really are when we let go of the delusions that we create through our attachment to desires.
Thank you, Luang. Maybe enough for today.